This here is Rabbi Baruch Rosenblum, a leading rabbi, well accepted throughout all of Israel. Let's hear what he has to say. God willing, Rosh Chodesh is this Thursday. There's going to be an announcement. What's going to be the announcement? It's going to say, the radio is going to blast out saying, Kol Yisrael from Jerusalem. In 5 minutes, you're going to hear a
So this Thursday is March 19th, which is also Nissan 1. Here, I want to show you guys what I worked on this weekend. We'll get into this a little bit more. So I built a timeline program because I got sick and tired of using like slideshows and presentation systems in order to calculate timelines. So I built a very thorough timeline illustration system. And that's what this is. So this is inspired from Time.Graphics, but their system was too limited. It wasn't really geared towards chiastic structures, celestial events, or calculating distance between time. So I wanted something that we could actually use as a tool to look at prophecy and pay attention to those things. Anyway, this is where we are here. This is today. And if we come down here and we turn on the Hebrew calendar, and we move this guy out of the way, you'll see that we are here at Nissan 1. So March 19th is Nissan 1, which is the beginning of the new year. So this is an important date for them that they're going to be talking about.
Warning. The Mashiach has arrived. Why do I think it's going to be on this Thursday? Because it says that the first Chodesh, the first month, is Nissan.
Okay, so something I want to remind you about here also is one of the things that we know to look for is claims of Mashiach being here. So this is one of the first ones I've come across that they're claiming that Mashiach is going to be here Thursday. So this is what it says. For then there will be great tribulation, such as not been since the beginning of the world until this time. No, nor ever shall be. And unless those days were shortened, no flesh would be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days will be shortened. Then if anyone says to you, look, here is the Christ, or there, do not believe it. For false Christs and false prophets will arise and show great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. See, I have told you beforehand. Therefore, if they say to you, look, he is in the desert, do not go out. Look, he is in the inner rooms, do not believe it. And I think the reason is he's not going to be here until the magnetic pole shift. So that's what this is. This is the magnetic pole shift is the thing that triggers him coming. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from heaven and the powers of heaven will be shaken. Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven. And then all the tribes of the earth will mourn. This is going to be a global event. It's not going to be secret. Everybody will see it. It's going to affect the entire world. And we've seen in Revelation 6 that seal number 6 is when very likely that the earth rotates. So if we come over here and we look at seal number 6, then the sky receded as a scroll when it was rolled up, and every mountain and island moved out of its place. And the kings of the earth, the great men, the rich men, the commanders, the mighty men, every slave and every free man hid themselves in the caves and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. So close, but probably not going to be this Thursday.
All the year. When will Mashiach come? Our rabbis teach us. It's going to come on the first day of Nissan, this Thursday.
Don't get me wrong, I'm all for it if he does show up. More power to him. I want the Mashiach to come because I want to move on with the end of sin.
שנאמר כמו שכתוב בפסוק.
Mashiach will come as it says in the verse.
ומה כתוב? ואיתו נוצר ברוח ראש וראשון. לקעקע שרידי עמלק ראש ראשון.
Why does he come on the first day of this month? To remove the head of Amalek on this Thursday.
מה צריכים לגמור עד ראש חודש ניסן?
What do we have to finish? What part of the war do we still need to finish until we get to Rosh Chodesh
מה צריכים
Nisan?
לגמור? לקעקע זה הראש של עמלק. מי זה?
To remove the head of Amalek.
חמינאי א',
Who is this? Chamenai
חמינאי ג',
number 1, Chamenai number 2, Chamenai number 3,
All of them.
תשוקאי ד',
Tachukai number 4,
פוקאי, כל
Pukei
אלה,
number
כל הרשימה, כל מה שנגמע באי בסוף, נכון?
any name that finishes with the E at the end.
אותם עד ראש וראשון.
We have to finish them off. All the leaders of our enemies need to be finished off by this Thursday.
התקשרתי לטראמפ, אמרתי לו עד ראש
Interesting.
חודש.
He's joking. He says, I called Trump and I told him, you got to finish the job by this Thursday.
אתה גומר את כולם. בעזרת השם, אתה מביא B2, יש לך מספיק.
He says, God willing, you'll bring a B-2 bomber. You have enough of them.
לגמור
And
את
you'll
העניין,
finish the whole
חלק,
thing.
לגמור את זה צ'יק
We'll finish it 1, 2, 3.
צ'ק. לעורר צורים החצובים מראש וראשון. לעורר את הקדוש ואת מי? את האבות הקדושים.
And this will awaken, God will awaken our forefathers.
שנאמר מראש צורים הראנו ומגבעות אשורנו.
Like it says, from the tips of the mountains and from the valleys, I will praise you.
לפעול חדשות בראש וראשון.
That means that on the first day of Nisan, there'll be amazing things that will happen.
בעזרת השם, ראש חודש,
God willing, this Rosh Chodesh, this Thursday,
יהיה חדשות.
That's not a holiday, is it? Let me go see. I added holidays to the calendars so I can track these things. So let's see. Turn on holidays. Jewish holidays. No, let's see. Pesach is not until April 2nd. Yeah. So it's just Nissan 1, so nothing really spectacular about that day. Check this out. Let's see. I also added zodiac constellation. So where's the sun? The sun will be in Pisces. Not that I know what that means. Moon phases, celestial events, vernal equinox. 3:20, day after. So does that mark Nissan 1, the vernal equinox? I added a bunch of these things. I have no idea what they mean or what they are. This is meant to be a tool for learning. I will probably end up releasing this so others can use it. I made it primarily for me. My objective this weekend was I wanted to figure out when the trumpets and the what do you call it? The bowls and the trumpets were going to be, and I ended up just making the ultimate timeline platform so that I could visualize these things, including the chiastic structures, and that's what we ended up with. It's pretty cool. I'll probably release it once I get it secure enough that others can add their own timelines. One of the cool things about it here is I made it really easy to anybody who has dictated any kind of a timeline with dates. I made it really easy to import all that information. So I've got like the full Messiah 2030 timeline in here, which is interesting. So if you want to look at the full Messiah, there's a lot of data on this. Hello. Anyway. It's a couple of the other popular ones. Shaddai Ministries, Return of the King, John Bevere, God's Roadmap to the End, and Christian Widner's timeline are all in here, so that we can compare notes and see if there's any see if anybody discovers anything that we can just get answers. It's not about who's right. It's really just about doing the work of watching and paying attention. I can't watch it all, so I wanted a way to be able to compare notes, and I'm probably going to add a feature. So once I release this, I'll add a feature to where you can automatically have like AI compare the differences between timelines. So like if we wanted to see the difference between Christian Widner and mine, which is this is really easy because he just puts everything before this. Like he's just like, this is the end of the tribulation. So, yeah, it's funny in doing this, I realized I probably have the most exhaustive timeline out of most just other than Messiah 2030. Messiah 2030's got a pretty exhaustive timeline. Anyway, we're getting distracted with this. We'll come back after this guy.
There'll be news. What'll be the news? Kol Yisrael from Jerusalem. In another 5 minutes, we're going to hear a warning. The Mashiach has arrived.
See, this is interesting. So he's basically making a prophecy here that the Mashiach is going to arrive on Nissan 1. And I think this is one of the cases where the Jews are going to start to be reconciled with the Christians. So I wasn't really clear on Friday or not Friday, but when I did the talking about Elijah, and I do believe that Donald Trump is a good candidate for Elijah because he's a catalyst. And Tovia Singer made the argument that the effect of Elijah is that fathers and sons are going to be reconciled to Hashem. My argument, which I think is a way better argument with where we are in the times, is that Jews and Christians are going to be reconciled. Because I look at kind of the Jews as, the fathers, or even the woman, because the woman in pain to be delivered is, I believe, refers to Israel. And she's in pain to be delivered. So there's a lot of imagery there, and it's well known that Christianity is the child of Judaism. It's an offshoot of Judaism. You had Jesus, who was Jewish, who came to teach how to live the law appropriately. He came to fulfill the law. He basically showed us this is how you fulfill the law. And he broke it down simply to love God and love your neighbor as yourself. And from that, you had the formation of many religions that tried to implement that. And, we still live in a world controlled by demons and evil spirits, so it's a challenge to say the least. But the truth remains that that it seems as though Judaism are the fathers, and I'd say Christians are the children, to where there's the reconciliation of them, because Christians need to realize that Jews were chosen by God for a reason. Who they are and how they live their life and how they follow Torah. There's a reason. I believe that they're the rod of iron because they're stubborn and stiff-necked. They're very hard to deviate from their religious practices, which are close to what God intended. However, they fall short in the loving God and loving your neighbor as yourself, which is why you need the Christians. So there's a coming together of the Jews and the Christians. That's my personal understanding of what it is that Elijah's doing, and the fathers turning to the children and the children to the fathers. Is you can see this spiritually happening right now, to where both Jews and the Christians are looking for the Messiah. I'd say the Christians are probably more inclined. They're probably more right in looking for in who they're looking for, because I do believe that Jesus is the Messiah the Jews are looking for, and that somebody has got to be a catalyst. Somebody's going to wake up the Jews for them to realize that. Granted, that more and more Jews are realizing that they're coming to. There's a messianic Jewish movement, to where many of them are recognizing that Yeshua was the Messiah and they're waiting for him to come back. But there's still those who aren't. And it's interesting though that we're all at this period of time looking for the Messiah, but got to be mindful of. I honestly don't think. Oh, my point in this whole explanation was, I don't think he's going to show up on Nissan, because I believe the New Testament is true in Matthew when it describes what's going to happen. This is part of the realization. This is part of what Jesus, when he said, I tell you these things beforehand so that when they come to pass, you will believe. That's what this recognition is, So this is one of their top rabbis. And he's saying Mashiach is going to come Nissan first. Well, Matthew 24 warned us about that, which means Jesus warned us that he was going to do this. And he said, don't believe it. And I believe the reason he said don't believe it is because Matthew tells us when the Son of Man is going to return. Revelation, seal number 6, tells us when the Son of Man is going to return, when the Messiah is actually going to return. And there's events around that need to take place, that need to come to pass. And they need to be made aware of that. So there's a period of time here where they need to realize they're going to make these predictions. They're going to be wrong. They're going to wonder why they're wrong. And hopefully someone somehow will get their attention, which is one of the reasons why we do the Addressing the House of Israel, is in an effort to get their attention. Maybe it'll take all, the Christian, all of us who are actively on YouTube, talking about this every day. Maybe it's a collective effort. I don't know. Maybe they'll see one of my videos. Who knows? But the objective is to look, Jesus told us these things beforehand so that when they begin to come to pass, you will believe. That's the point. And that recognition, I think, will bring together both Jews and Christians. And that will be that reconciliation, for that Malachi 5 talks about, the fathers to the children and the children to the fathers, not the daddy Jews and kitty Jews, like Tovia Singer says. Hilarious. All right, let's continue.
לפעול חדשות בראש וראשון. אם יגידו נשמעה התראה.
To tell you that there will be special things, amazing things happen. If I were to tell you that there was a sound, a siren that was heard,
להיכנס לממ"ד זה לא חדשות.
to tell you to go into the safe room, that's not news.
זה כבר ישנות, נכון?
That's already old news. Everybody knows that.
ברוך השם.
Thank you.
לעשות מה שנקרא מיגון מיטבי.
To make a complete protection around ourselves, that we know how to do.
ברוך השם.
We know
אם
how
יש
to do.
לכם מיגון מיטבי, חדשות המשגיח מגיע, יהיה מיגון. לרצות חידוש שורת ראש וראשון.
This is to awaken the redemption on the first of the first.
נביא לקדוש ברוך הוא קורבנות, שיבוא
bring-
משיח.
The offerings that are in Ezekiel 46 that we bring for the Melech HaMashiach.
יש ברכות שמברכים. צריכים להתכונן, יש ברכות שמברכים.
There are special blessings that we need to say. We need to know these blessings before Mashiach comes.
ביאת משיח. להוביל בו שי לראש וראשון.
And we have to bring a gift on the first of the first. We have to bring a gift to Mashiach.
מי מובילים? מובילים שי לקדוש ברוך הוא מה? את כל הקורבנות שאנחנו צריכים להביא לו על מה שחטאנו.
We have to bring sin offerings for the sins that we have done.
ושאבינו נביא לקדוש ברוך הוא קורבנות.
We're going to bring to God our offerings.
היום הביא
So Fury made a really good comment here in the comments. Some Christians have to realize that replacement theories so many are preaching are wrong and not scriptural. 100%. Yeah, Jesus did not come to replace the law. You're going to be why do you think that in Matthew 7:22, the scariest section of the Bible, where Jesus says, "For many will come to me, many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name? Did we not cast out demons in your name? Did we not do many wonderful works in your name? And then I will say to you, get behind me, you who practice lawlessness." Why would he tell that to them? Because those who are under the impression, who think that he came to replace the law, are mistaken. He did not come to replace the law. It doesn't even say that in Scripture. He came to fulfill the law. And by fulfill, it means show us how to live the law. And he showed us throughout his entire life, both in his, before he was a rabbi, while he was a rabbi, and even in his death. He showed us how to live Torah. So we have an example of how to do it right. And many Jews are better at this than Christians. But at the same time, Christians are better at loving their neighbor as themselves. So we both have things that we need to learn from each other, and that's what that reconciliation is. And one of the things that many Jews, bring up as a sign of the end times is many will seek out the Jews, saying, "Teach us of your Father, teach us of Hashem." And there's many Christians that and Jesus warned us about this. He warned us in what was it? John 5:43. He says, "I come in my Father's name, and you do not receive me. But one will come after me in his own name, him you will receive." So there's people out there who are following a Jesus who comes in his own name. And that Jesus is not leading them to the Father. This is why in the end time, one of the signs is many will come to the Jews saying, "Show us Hashem, teach us about the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob," is because they inherited lies. And both sides, both Jews and Christians, have inherited lies. So there's going to be a reconciliation between the two. We all have pieces of the puzzle.
Today, a special Jew brought me
בערב, בסייעתא דשמיא, הביא לי יהודי אחד, קטע מתוך ספר של
he brought me a little piece of a book that was written
רבי שמואל לניאדו.
by a man, a great sage named Rev Shmuel Laniado,
שמואל לניאדו, אחד המפרשים על התנ"ך, לפני 500 שנה.
who lived 500 years ago and wrote the following thing.
יש לו ספר שנקרא קליפז.
The name of the book that it's found in is called Klipaz.
בספר ישעיהו,
In the book of Isaiah, on the verse that it says,
כי זבח להשם בבוצרה וטבח גדול בארץ אדום. מה זה בוצרה?
what is Botzra? What is this place that Isaiah is talking about when he says Botzra? There's a song everybody sings, many Jewish homes singing. It's called Dro Yikra. And in that song, what does it say in that song about the third temple? It brings this word, Botzra, that's found in Isaiah 34. So let's start practicing. Let's start figuring out what Botzra is. What is this place called Botzra that relates to the third temple? So Reb Shmuel Laniado answers this question on this verse. What does it mean that there will be an offering to God in Botzra? There's a country that's far from Bavel, far from Babylonian, and its name is Botzra. And it's between Ashur and Persia. And it's at the border of Edom. What is the name of this place? It's called Hormuz. Anybody in the crowd knows what Hormuz is?
The Strait of Hormuz. That's right here. Right there. That's the Strait of Hormuz. Right there. Right now you can see the war is still active, with GPS being actively blocked and still marked as a conflict zone. Wildfires and attacks and bad air quality, I imagine, from even disease outbreaks in Qatar. But right here, that is the Strait of Hormuz, which when you zoom out, you got South Africa there. You've got Asia, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Europe right there, and then Hormuz. The United States is on the other side of the world right there. Just to give you perspective of where that is. Right there. Country boundaries. There you go. Strait of Hormuz. I need to add labels for bodies of water. All right, let's go back.
What's Hormuz? That is the Strait of Hormuz. Anybody know what's going on right now in the Strait of Hormuz right now?
האיראנים רצו לשים פצצות שכל אונייה שתעבור
The Iranians wanted to put bombs there, that any boat that passes through
שם תתפוצץ, נכון?
blow up.
הם יחסמו את
Yeah, the
המעברים
U.S.
של
blew up all their
הדלק.
boats.
They're going to stop all the pathways for oil to get through.
מה יהיה?
And then what's
לא
going to
יהיה דלק.
happen? There won't be oil in the world.
שליש עולם ניזון מהמעבר הזה.
One
So that's not entirely true. We read today that it's 1/5 of the world's oil, and the reason is that a lot of oil is produced over here in Saudi Arabia and in this area. So this is where over here is where a lot of oil is produced, and then they ship it out of this area. But it is not all of the world's oil. It is only 1/5 of the world's oil, but it is a large number, and it serves certain countries some more than others. And to be fair, some states within countries more than others, like California, for instance, will only accept oil from this location because they have special formula requirements for the environment or whatever. So while there are other places to get oil from, this does have a pretty big impact globally. It's not all the world's oil.
third of the world gets their oil through this strait.
I have no idea who's right. He says a third. Today we read a fifth. Who knows?
תחסמו. מה אמר
What's going to happen if the Iranians close it off? What did Trump say?
אדון טראמפ מהכדור שעבר לו באוזן?
When he got the bullet, just nipped his ear, God spoke to him. What did God tell him?
אמר, אתם הורדתם לי כדור באוזן, כל
So what did Trump say? You gave me a bullet in my ear.
אונייה שלכם אני אוריד.
Any boat that goes through the Hormuz Strait, I'm going to take out.
הוריד להם עד היום, לא יודע כמה, 20 אוניות, נכון?
He took out already 20 boats.
ואמר, אם אתם לא תגמרו, צלי ארמוז יהיה פתוח.
And he says, if you don't stop, we're going to do everything to keep this path of Hormuz open.
הוא אומר, והיא, כותב הרב שמואל אניאדו,
And Rav Shmuel Eliyahu wrote,
והוא המקום שנקרא מצרי הורמוז,
and this is the place that's called Mitzrei Hormuz, the Strait of Hormuz.
נמצא תחת ממשלת הישמעאלים.
And he says that 500 years ago, he wrote that this strait is under the control of the Ishmaelim.
וברוך היודע אמיתתם של דברים.
And blessed is those who understand what this means.
אולי
Perhaps
יהיה דרך שם המלחמה האחרונה באחרית הימים.
Perhaps this place will be the place where the final war will take place.
רבותיי, מי יודע, עם החדשות שנקבל בעזרת השם,
Gentlemen, who knows if the news we're going to get
בראש חודש ניסן,
this Thursday on...
So again, that was one of the reasons why I started building this timeline platform. It is really to answer that question that I think it was Liz. Correct me if I'm wrong. If somebody else had asked this question about when was the Battle of Armageddon, and we've been kind of slowly touching on this and looking at different resources and doing research on it to find out if it's not a single period of time that like culminates in Armageddon, or if there's multiple battles, if there's the Great Tribulation, the Gog-Magog War, and then a separate one, Armageddon. And also, where do these fit in the timeline of events? Because during seal number 7, there are 7 trumpets and 7 bowls. It seems as though there's 7 trumpets and 7 bowls after the opening of seal number 7. That's one of the reasons I built this platform, is to start answering those questions, because we're getting to the point now to where we have so many puzzle pieces that we can start making educated guesses. And with a platform for tracking the timeline, we can simply update as we learn more information.
Rosh Chodesh Nissan. Every day we say Kriya Shema. We say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Every Jew knows this. This is the anthem of Judaism. And we don't have to go into prophets to get this message. What is the essence of these verses that we say? Well, we start off by saying that God is one. Mm-hmm. The next thing we say is We should love Hashem with all our heart, with all our money. And we have signs. We put on tefillin on our head and our hand.
I don't think that's written in the scripture. Isn't it with all your hearts, with all your mind, with all your soul, and with all your strength? I don't know if it's with all your money. That might be a modern interpretation.
And we have a mezuzah.
Not that you shouldn't honor God with all your money, with all your everything that you have. I mean, you have everything you have is because of Hashem. So I kind of get what he says. Just struck the ear weird.
On the wall, and men wear tzitzis, which show our connection to God. We have a whole video on that. But what's the central part of this message? It says, "V'haya im shemoa." If you follow the Torah.
You know, when Jesus comes back, do you guys think that they'll still do all of those things, like the tefillin, the tefillin, and the word on the head and stuff like that? That kind of stuff kind of seems a little above and beyond to me. I don't think it's really hurting anything, but I think that's kind of where the difference is between Christians and the Jews is, the Jews take things quite literally, and they're, the original people of promise, of covenants, and they clearly have a special place in God's heart because they're called the apple of his eye, and touching them is an abomination of desolation. But at the same time, like, I think that was what Jesus came to show, is just like the difference between the religious application of Torah and Torah as part of life. Like, I think there's a place to learn from them, because many Christians don't have the habits that Jews have. Many Christians don't pray 3 times a day. Many Christians aren't making a conscious effort to think about Hashem. Many Christians fight and argue about Sabbath, or they just completely ignore Sabbath. So, like, there's a lot that we can learn from Jews. And likewise, the Jews could also learn to relax, because it's not a death sentence, if you don't do those things. So I can see the two extremes and how they're perfectly situated to balance each other out.
Then you will be able to live in Eretz Yisrael, and the land will give forth the rain and the fruit. But if you don't listen, God will close up the sky, and there'll be no rain, there'll be no food, and you'll have to leave. What are the few verses that right precede V'hoyed Shemoah, if you will listen, in the Torah? What does it say? It's talking about the difference between Mitzrayim and Eretz Yisrael. It says that Eretz Yisrael is not like Mitzrayim. What's Mitzrayim? Very simple. Mitzrayim is the place where the Nile River gives forth its sustenance, and it doesn't care who's there. That's exile. Exile means there's no connection. But the whole purpose of all Shema is for us to be able to be in the relationship, V'haya im Shemoah. We follow the Torah, we follow the mitzvos, so that we could be merit to be able to be in the land. How do we know when we're able to be in the land? Well, it's very simple. If you can, and the land is giving forth its fruit and welcoming you, and Israel is succeeding in its wars and wiping out its enemies, that's a sign God is with you. You ask, how do you know this? Well, read the Torah. Read the book of Judges. Every single war, when the Jews follow the message of God, when they follow the Torah, they succeed at war. And following the Torah and repentance is the single factor that wins wars. So will Mashiach comes this Thursday on Rosh Chodesh Nissan? I really hope so.
Yeah, me too.
But what does it depend on? It depends on us. I doubt it, though. Us are doing our part of welcoming Mashiach is to get on board. Right now, not everybody can come to Israel. The skies are closed. Perhaps that's what it means. We will come on the wings of birds, of an eagle, because perhaps we will need a miracle to get the rest of the Jews back by Rosh Chodesh Nisan.
Oh, I thought this was a lot longer.
And miracles are easy to come by when the Jews are in the land. Thank you for watching. Shavua Tov.
Oh, that was a lot longer. All right, let's move on to the timeline update.
I created the heavens and the earth, a perfect harmony, a timeless birth. I shaped the stars, I set them free, a world of wonder, a song for me. I formed the man, the dust took flight, I gave the woman a shared delight.
All right, here we go. Let's see, which side do I want to be on? Well, we'll do this side. All right, so you've kind of been introduced already to this. So what we have here is a timeline that goes from left to right. So this is 2020, this is 2020, 2030, right there. This here is the anchor point. So this, in my mind, is pretty much the most important indicator that we're in the end time. And I'll be adding in the videos and the images for the sign that actually appeared in heavens. You've seen them before. There are these here. I'll be adding these into the timeline. But for now, the dates are really what's important. So we've got these here, which this is the Revelation 12 sign. This is the anchor point. 2 days before the anchor point was Tishri 1. So Tishri 1 is the beginning of the Hebrew New Year. It is typically in September on the Gregorian calendar. So this time frame is right here. So you've got from Tishri 1 in 2017 to Tishri 1 in 2031. And the reason I chose that period of time is because we're well past the 7-year mark. And there's a lot of people who are expecting everything to happen and sum up in one 7-year period of time. Which it's interesting because Yeshua, he does a lot of talking about the Lord being delayed. And there's also a lot of precedent in the Old Testament for, your expectation of 7 years not being fulfilled, but having to actually work 14 years. So who was it? Joseph, who worked for Rachel and then Leah, something like that, or Leah, then Rachel. And so there is a precedent for a 14-year period of time. So once we got to the 7-year mark and we'd only experienced the first 4 seals, that's when I started adding, we're going into another week of years. And that's what this is right here. This right here is 2 weeks of years. So this represents a 14-year period of time from here to there. So that's what that is. So this happened 9/23/2017. These right here, these little suns represent eclipses. I should probably put a little black dot inside there to make those more clear. So these are eclipses, and there's an interesting pattern here. And then down here, the red ones are blood moons, which is interesting to pay attention to. A lot of the other watchmen, the people who pay attention to the timelines, they focus heavily on the triads and tetrads, which I don't put a lot into the blood moons. There is some reference to blood moons, like the sun will be darkened and the moon turned to blood before the great and terrible day of the Lord. But it's far fewer than the eclipses being used to mark the opening of seals. So based on what we've seen and what has happened so far, certain eclipses happened on the same day as events. So we have COVID here, December 26, 2019. This was when COVID was first kind of publicly became an increasing issue. I used to have a ton of videos that proved that they had traced back the start of it to December. I'll find out. Some of them have been removed, and now they're actually changing the date back to like November. So I don't know. When I originally, watched this eclipse happen and watched those events happen, it was pretty convincing that this was the opening of Seal 1. And also the sign in heaven is kind of another giveaway. Is not only, so these are the 4 living creatures. So Revelation 4 acts like a key to understanding the events, what to look for. So this picture right here is looking down at the North Pole. And then when you look down at the North Pole, you've got constellations in the corners of the earth that match the 4 living creatures. I'm sure there is dual meaning to everything that's written in the book of Revelation, but just for the purpose of identifying when events have happened, these were vitally important. So you've got a lion, the bull, the face of a man, and a flying eagle, given in that order. And then, the 24 elders seem to be associated with the sun and the moon, which is why you see this little breakdown right here. So this is the 24 time zones, if you will, or 24 hours in a day, indicated on the earth. So, and then when they cast their crowns, so basically when the sun and moon come together in a particular section of the sky, that's when the living creature is saying, "Come and see." So this is all written in Revelation 4. So this was the eclipse that happened on December 26, 2019, is there was a crown above Sagittarius. So when seal number 1 says the rider on the, what does it say? The rider on the, here we go. Doop. Now, I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard one of the 4 living creatures saying, notice it doesn't say which of the 4 living creatures, it just said one of the 4 living creatures, saying with a loud voice like thunder, "Come and see." And I looked, and behold, a white horse. He who sat on it had a bow, and a crown had been given to him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. And that's what happened on this day. So you've got a rider on a horse, he's given a crown, and he has a bow, and you have a living creature right above him. Right here is Aquarius, or not Aquarius, Aquila, the flying eagle. It's right here. So this is right above Sagittarius. So basically, the day that this eclipse happens, you've got Aquila saying, "Come and see." And if you think about it, John's perspective when he had this vision is he's up here at the North Pole. So it's as if you can imagine him right here with the angel looking down at the earth, and then if you could see this flying eagle say, "Hey, come and see," and it calls John down to watch the event that happened on this day. Well, that was the beginning of COVID. This was when they started locking people in their apartments. There had been a reported outbreak. And then this is like the kind of the start of events that ended up resulting in the pandemic. And then here you got seal number 2 right here. When he opened the second seal, I heard the second living creature say, "Come and see." Another horse, fiery red, went out, and it was granted to the one who sat on it to take peace from the earth, and that people should kill one another, and there was given to him a great sword. So this was that eclipse. So this was December 14th, 2020, which is right here, December 14th, 2020. And this was the day they declared Joe Biden to be the winner of the presidential election. It also happened to be the same day that he was given control over the vaccine. So he started giving the vaccine that very day. And it's interesting here because notice a lot of people like to say that this is the day that war breaks out. That's not what it says. And it was granted to the one who sat on it to take peace from the earth. So that is true about the office of the president. And Joe Biden definitely did that. Trump likes to say that had he been in office, the Ukraine-Russia war would have never happened. But because Biden was in office and because he was a very weak president, war did break out and peace was taken from the earth. And even to this day, there's still a continued conflict between Russia and Ukraine to the tune of 30,000 people are losing their life. See, and it says, and that people should kill one another. That's what they're doing right now. They're killing one another. And there was given him a great sword. Some interpretations of this are little dagger, which, when combined with the fact that the constellation is holding Asclepios, the god of toxinology and toxicology, it's just a lot of coincidences happening on the day of this eclipse. So we marked it here on the calendar. And then this one is the one that really confuses people. When he opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature say, "Come and see." So I looked, and behold, a black horse, and he who sat on it had a pair of scales. Pair of scales is a really bad translation. It should be a yoke. Pair of scales is zugos in the Greek, and it can be and should be translated yoke. He had a yoke in his hands. Well, this is the eclipse. It happens to be in the bull, which is a beast, between his two horns. And this is the day that Joe Biden and Boris Johnson signed the new Atlantic Charter at the G7. This is what yoked together the United States and the United Kingdom. There were 8 categories that they agreed to support each other on. And I'm personally of the opinion that this was the acceleration of the woke mind virus and the cancel culture, because it was intended to persecute the saints in both the two of the greatest places on earth. We saw that continually. And this is what Elon disrupted when he bought Twitter. And then Donald Trump, further smashed when he regained power back as president of the United States. But this is a yoke. This is what the rider on the black horse is holding. He's holding a yoke, which you can understand why it might be translated balance, pair of balances. Because, if you put a pole here and then you put a pan over here and a pan over here, then it balances between the two. But considering the word is zugos, and it is most often translated as yoke, it's weird that it was translated as pair of scales here. And it's entirely likely the reason being is because right here I have this span of time. This is Revelation 6:6, which is the verse right after seal number 3. And it says, "And I heard a voice in the midst of the 4 living creatures, saying, a quart of wheat for a denarius, and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, and do not harm the oil and wine." So this verse is saying that in the midst of the 4 living creatures. So basically, you've got the 4 living creatures drawing attention to this to these dates, right? So imagine, if you will, if you come back over here, you've got these living creatures saying, "Come and see, come and see COVID. Come and see Joe Biden and the vaccine. Come and see, they're signing a new Atlantic Charter, yoking together 2 beasts, the United States and the United Kingdom." Beasts represents governments. So he's calling attention. And then finally, you've got this one, Leo, calling attention to the Al-Aqsa Flood. But this is the one that a lot of people don't understand, a lot of people miss. And I heard a voice in the midst. Midst means middle of the 4 living creatures. Well, these are the 4 living creatures right here. So they're calling attention to events, so it stands to reason that what it means is that the result of these first 4 seals is going to be inflation. And indeed, that's exactly what happens. Inflation got up to 30-40%. Officially reported as 9%, but it got up pretty high. And we're still suffering the consequences of that, but it's come down in a lot of areas. It's not as prolific as it was. Many states were blessed with $2 gasoline for the first time in 10 years. In our area, eggs are back down to like $4, $4 to $5 for a carton of 12 eggs. So, inflation is definitely coming down now that we're out of or coming out of seal number 4. But anyway, and then you've got seal number 4 here, which is a 2-part. So you've got when he opened the 4th seal, I heard the voice of the 4th living creature saying, "Come and see." So I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and the name of him who sat on him was Death. And Hades followed with him, and power was given to them over 1/4 of the earth, to kill with sword, with hunger, and with death, and by the beasts of the earth. You know, the thing about the description on these things is they're so hard to quantify. Like, I don't have eyes on the entire globe, but I can tell you that the Al-Aqsa Flood, which is what this seems to be referring to, on October 7th, that's when Hamas, who is the proxy for Iran, and indeed, Iran was supposed to be involved in this attack. It's just that Hamas got anxious and went in early. This was supposed to destroy Israel. This is why I say that this is very likely the abomination of desolation, because according to Luke 21, it says, when you see Jerusalem surrounded, know that its desolation is near. And Jerusalem indeed was surrounded. So if we look over here, where are we? Jerusalem's up here. This is Jerusalem right here, Israel. And even to this day, you can see there's, war measures going on. But, you got Syria up here, you got Jordan over here, you got Egypt over here. You've got Iran, Iraq, Iran, Saudi Arabia. You've got enemies on all sides. Turkey, pretty much everybody around them, for some reason, they want this plot of land. Which is funny, because it's it's not a very big spot, but they're all fighting over it. And sure enough, there was a plan, and this is confirmed. There was a plan for multiple countries to go in simultaneously and completely wipe out the Jews in Israel. So it's very likely that that is the abomination of desolation. It's also likely that it's the flood talked about in Revelation 12, where the serpent cast out a flood after the woman, because this is the woman. But the earth swallowed it up. Oh, and right here, this is Palestine. So this is where Hamas was. So they invaded over here. They came in over here. The border without walls, the country without walls, they invaded right here. There was literally just chain link fences between Palestine and Israel. And yeah. Let's go back over here. So October 7th was very likely the abomination of desolation. And then a week later, 7 days later, you had Operation Iron Sword, which is when Israel mounted their attack and went in to retrieve their hostages, because there were 1,200 who were killed, 1,200 or more, who were killed in the attack, and 250 who were taken hostage. And this was a pivot point for the world. I mean, even Elon Musk, I think even to this day, he still wears the dog tags. He may not wear them, but he wore the dog tags and vowed that he would wear them until every single hostage was returned. I haven't checked to see if he actually has taken them off, but he was wearing them last time I checked, before they had reported that all the hostages had been returned. But yeah, so you've got the abomination of desolation, you've got the inflation, and then this is, let's see, right here is where Donald Trump was elected the president. Well, actually, he was elected back in November, but this is when he took office. So this is the first time that Donald Trump and Elon Musk started working together. And, I'm of the opinion that based on this timeline, we're running out of time here. We've already gone through 9 years from the anchor point. So the question is how far can we get away from this anchor point, this unique sign, in order to fulfill all the prophecies about the end time? I'm of the opinion we don't really go past 27, 28, probably 2028. Yeah. I'm going to show you how I might be off by 6 months here in a minute. This is a kind of a realization I had this weekend, because I was trying to measure it out to where This is, so if you take these guys like this is kind of the chiastic structure that I've been pointing at for the longest time. So you see how they so this was, this lasted how many days? 354 days, 178 days, 2 years and 119 days. This was 2 years and 127 days. And then what is likely seal number 5. So that is basically this right here. So based on the you can see the symmetry here to where there's a pattern between these seals opening, and it's almost a lot clearer to see the first time when you see it like on an Excel spreadsheet, which me and this guy both came up with this probably around the same time. I literally put together an Excel spreadsheet. I wonder if I have it on here. I probably do. Yeah, right here. So I came up with this right around the same time that he did. And I was just trying to figure out a way to visualize eclipses and blood moons. So the first time you see it, you see that there's a pattern to the eclipses. So these yellow marks represent eclipses. So eclipse, 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 eclipse. Total solar eclipse, I should say, specify. And then right here you can see where they move. So like this eclipse moved here, moved there. These are lunar eclipses, I think. And then this is a solar move there, solar move there. But what really got our attention is they reverse. And when you look at this timeline here, so you can see how that works, right? So if you look at this is what's interesting. So these are eclipses. You got 6 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then there's a period of time with no eclipses, just lunar blood moons. Then you have 3 eclipses in a row. And then you have a period of time again. And then you have 6 eclipses. Oops. I am not pointing to the right map. You might have gotten the point because I was moving it around. But right here. So these are the 6 eclipses right here. And then you got a space here. And then you got 3 eclipses. And you have another space. And then you got 6 eclipses here again. So there is a pattern. And it seems, the interesting thing is this right here. I don't know. Maybe you could even argue. You could argue that this is the center point. I may need to adjust my Excel spreadsheet, because this might actually be the center point. See, based on the pattern here, I assumed that this eclipse would be seal number 5. But if you notice, this one started on the second one, and then the 4th one, and then the 5th one. So it may be that we need to move these over. So this may actually be seal number 5. This might be seal number 6, and then this would be seal number 7, which it's interesting because seal number 7, if we have this end in 2028, that actually puts it more in line with the death of the 2 witnesses. So if we come in here, one of the dates for the death of the 2 witnesses is July 3rd, 2028, based on 1,260 days from January 20th. So that might mean that right there is closer to the opening of seal number 7. So we might actually be off. I might have been off by 6 months. And the reason I say 6 months is, what I noticed about these eclipses? Check this out. This is so cool. There's 177 days between every single eclipse. Roughly 177 days. So 177, 177, 177, 177, 177, which that's about 6 months. Same thing here. 177 to there. So you can see the day count. I put the day count on here. Whoops. I put the day count on here. You can see. So it's like between here and here, it's 177. Between there and there is 177. And that holds true over here too. Between here and here is 177, 177, 77, you get it. So it may be that this guy is supposed to be here. This guy is supposed to be here. And then this guy is supposed to be there. Does that fit? Nope. That means this guy goes here. And then there's a space. And then this one. Right there. And then that guy there. Yeah. Which we need to turn off the chiasms. All right. So that might actually be. So this 812, what I thought was the magnetic pole shift, this might technically be the opening of seal number 5 and might be the actual start of the Great Tribulation, which would make more sense with what we're experiencing right now because nothing really happened on this day. We were thinking maybe it just marks the change of focus spiritually. It was soon after this that Trump went into Iran. But it may be, I wouldn't say that we're actually in anything that seems like the Great Tribulation. There's wars going on around the world. There's people who are dying all over the world. There is, food and logistics problems. But by and large, I'd say globally, people are doing relatively the same. It's definitely like the days of Noah. So I may have gotten it off by 6 months. And what's interesting is you can see how I did that. It wasn't until I actually visualized this pattern to be able to actually see that. So this might actually be the center point of the reversing pattern of this thing. Where is it? This thing. So it might not actually be January 10th, 2024. It might actually be April 8th, 2024 is the center point. So that might be the center point of the chiasma. I think I based it on this one. So this was based on 856 days from here to there and 856 days from there to there. I don't know. I could have been right. This could still be seal number 6. But now we have a better way of visualizing it, and it's something that we'll continue to monitor. So let's move on here. I'll show you what these other timelines look like. So this is El Shaddai Ministries. So this is Pastor Mark Biltz. He recently came out and did an update on his timeline. His timeline is much, much further in the future than mine is. He does base some of his stuff on eclipses. So he's definitely taking note of October 7th as an important date in regards to the end times. He's got the Iran war. He's got that lasting 2 years. And then an extension of it here on this eclipse in 2026. Iran, Israel escalated. So this is the escalation 2 war. And what's interesting, the reason I wanted his timeline and what kind of got me started looking at everybody else's timelines is he actually found some interesting connections. That's not it. Oops. I'm having a hard time with my mouse. So he thinks this is the end of 1,290 days from Tishri 1. So if you count from Tishri 1, 2030 to April 7th, 2034, that would be the end of unleavened bread. That's when he thinks is the end of the 1,290 days. And he also has a 1335 in here. Where is it? Is this it? There it is. The end after 1335 from the tribulation, blessing and delivery reference, which ends on Shavuot and Pentecost. So I'm gonna see if these the time span between those festivals isn't the same, and I'm gonna transfer that information over to my timeline to see if we can't learn, because I don't think it's limited to only the one he found here, because if you see, there's patterns day count patterns. So this one, so what is this? This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there is a similar pattern here that continues. So there's a repeating pattern. So he thinks that the 7-year tribulation goes from 2030 to 2037. I honestly don't think with where we are in the world today, I think that's way too far in advanced. I'm already tired enough of waiting since I've been looking and watching this stuff along with many others. That's why I added many other timelines on here. Return of the King. He's putting out a video every other week of when the rapture is going to be. So I thought it would be worth putting some of his stuff on here. He marks the Revelation sign as an important part of the countdown, but he does some other kind of weird calculations. And then he keeps picking these dates. He thinks I think this is when he thinks the rapture is going to be, rapture event. He thinks May 31st, 2026. Proposed date for the pre-tribulation rapture of the church falls on the 15th day of the 3rd month. So let's see. So that's Return of the King, the Messiah 2030. This one, I don't know why it doesn't load very well. I think it's too much data. I may have to come back and optimize their stuff. It's kind of starting to zoom out. Anyway, Messiah 2030 thinks the Messiah is going to return in 2030. Found this guy, John Bevere. Maybe it's just like, I think I may have found a bug. Long spans are slow. I don't know why it wasn't slow like this all day. I don't know what's going on. Let's see. He's got the 3rd day. He puts the millennial reign here from 2075 to 3075. And then right here, he's got 1967 to 2067 is the generation window. 100-year generation. I don't agree with that. I think that's too far out. Then you got God's roadmap to the end. He's a big fan of the blood moons. He's always pointing at the tetrads and the triads and the all those things. He is looking at what is he looking at? Yeah, planetary alignment. So when's he say? Has he not set a date for the rapture? Good for him. I thought he had I thought he had a rapture watch date. Guess not. All right, and then finally we've got Christian Widner. So he's got the eclipse that happened right before the Revelation 12 sign. For some reason, he thinks seals 1 through, like all the seals opened up here. He puts the end of the tribulation at 2027, which is about right. You know, we're in the ballpark there, but he's got this based on counting jubilees, which Mark Biltz does that too. He counts the jubilees. Predicted escalation, 2025. Hamas attack, Ring of Fire. 7-year tribulation. When's he have that? He's got that from 2020 to 2027. Yeah, I would almost agree with that. And then that's my timeline, which I think that the seals were marked by eclipses and that there's a pattern here that informs when the other seals are going to open. And the reason I started looking for that is because there's only 4 living creatures. Calling attention to the first 4 events, which leaves you to wonder how you're supposed to know when the last three events happen. There's enough of a pattern here that we can make some educated guesses. And I think that's really the key. One hiccup is the 7 years. So this pattern is nice and neat up until you get to the 7 years. So the trumpets and the bowl judgments, which I think that's what is after this. And I think that probably happens probably between the opening of seal number 7 and Tishri 1 here. So I think this is where we need to fit the bowls and the judgments. I think this is basically seal number 7. And what's interesting here is if we do a little, I got a little ruler. So if we do a ruler for 1,260 days, 1,000, close enough. So if you put Trump, what's here? So this is the two witnesses. So if you take from the time that Donald Trump and Elon Musk, so that's this, Trump is the U.S. president. This is when Elon started doing Doge with Trump, and everybody started treating Elon with Trump derangement syndrome. That was when Elon derangement syndrome happened. So if you go from when they started working together to this eclipse, that's about 1,260 days. It's actually July 3rd. So that's close enough that I could see that actually being potentially even the opening of seal number 7. So you'd have basically the death of the two witnesses, and then the resurrection of the two witnesses, and then shortly after that, the opening of seal number 7. So that would be a good argument for, let's see, when is that? So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that would put seal number 6 there and seal number 5 there. So we may actually be 6 months early. So seal number 5 may not open until August 12th, 2026, which that would put seal number 6 at, when is that eclipse? I don't think we've looked at this one. February 6, 2027 would be the opening of seal number 6. So that would be the rotation of the magnetic. That would be the magnetic pole shift. And then you'd have a period of time here between. So you'd have basically 1 year. Yeah. So from here to here is about 360 days, I think. Here, we can measure. So from there, oops. Ruler. There to there. Oh, wait. What does it say? 500 days. So it's like a year and a half. Okay. So it's a year and a half between seal number 6 and the opening of seal number 7. So that would put the Great Tribulation here. So we may still be in seal number 4. I don't know. I'm going to continue to work on this. I think we got some cool tools. Can continue to add features to this. But pretty cool stuff, huh? Does that interest you guys? This is what I love doing. I love building tools and doing these calculations so that we can kind of watch. And I think that's why it's important that you don't go making claims that, somebody gave you special information, because you can see we have all the puzzle pieces to work with there. God gave us the eclipses. The eclipses have a pattern. There are certain day counts between the eclipses. And when you combine that with, what's written, I believe wholeheartedly that Jesus, not only did he intend, God, I'd say God, because God gave this to his son, Jesus. I fully believe that God intended us to know this information. That's why Revelation 4, and it took computers to realize this stuff. He knew that this wouldn't be understood until we had the computers in order to recognize this. So we needed to be able to visualize the globe. We had to be able to to visualize the globe like this, you know, we had to, here, let's turn off all these layers. And these layers. We had to be able to visualize this globe and realize that John was taken up to here. So this is just John where he was taken up to, because it says he was taken, a door opened in heaven and he was taken up. So his perspective was looking down at the earth, and from that perspective you could see the constellations. And then once you know the constellations, and then you've got the 24 elders who, when they cast their crowns before the throne, it's no coincidence that those happened in the segments of skies with constellations on the days that events happened on Earth that tie all of this stuff together. So I think this is part of what Jesus meant when he said, I tell you these things beforehand so that when they begin to happen, you will believe. And I hope that we can get this information out more so that people like Tovia Singer can realize this is actual evidence that proves that Jesus is the Messiah. And honestly, it may not come to pass until he gets here, until the Messiah shows up. This may be archival information to act as a testimony to prove that he is who he says he is. I'll testify to it. He gave us the information ahead of time. Here's the step-by-step plan. These are the things that happened that prove he gave us this information. So it is written that God gave this information to Jesus. Jesus gave it to his disciples. His disciples wrote it down. And in the case of John in the book of Revelation, he sent an angel to signify it to John. So that angel that gave this information to John gave him a deeper, he gave him visual aids. You know what I mean? Like he took him up above the earth, and, John was trying to describe what he saw. Well, part of the reason why this was hidden and people didn't understand a lot of it is because the imagery that was used wouldn't make sense until we had the technology to make sense of it. To be able to visualize the earth, to be able to show the constellations, to be able to look at where these things take place. So if you're looking at like this here, and you've got the constellations in the corners, that's when you're looking at this. Oops. So this is the North Pole. So right here, this is the North Pole. This is basically what John was looking at. He was looking down at the earth like this. And also like the information about the seals, like the fact that I can go, if you look at the stars here, when the earth rotates like this, where the north and south pole are down at the equator, that's going to make the stars roll up like a scroll. You're going to see stars move out of their place. And also the islands, look at this, like actually it's probably going to be more like that. I fully expect that like the landmass and the landmass is going to come together, and that at the North and South Pole it will be just water because it'll probably freeze again up there. And it's interesting because this could make sense for how God flooded the earth. Can you imagine? Because it is written that Noah documented that the earth shook like a drunkard, moved out of its place. So he basically said the earth did this, moved like a drunkard. So, if the North and South Pole were just completely frozen water, when God said that he broke up the waters from the deep, this could be the deep. So it could be that when he did this and he moved the earth, oops, I'm trying to get this North Pole back up there. Go back to work. Go back to your home. Actually, I have a reset button somewhere. Maybe I don't. Where's my reset button? There's supposed to be a reset button here. Does that not show up on small screens? Okay. Anyway. Yeah, it may entirely be that that's what caused the flooding of the earth. Can you imagine? So if you turn this up here to where there's more land up here, and this water begins to melt, this might be what caused the flood. And it could also be what caused the division of the continents. There's a popular Kent Hovind who owns a Dinosaur Adventureland often talks about that, you don't need the continents to shift. You don't need these plates to move in order to separate the land masses. In some cases, you just need water to fill in the gaps. But the fact that bowl number 7 says that the earth will be flat and the islands will flee away and the mountains will be no more, I would argue that there's probably not going to be big valleys. It's probably going to be just one giant landmass. That's why I think that we're going to probably get back to a Pangea, which makes more sense under a millennial reign. And, there's actually, it just reminded me of Zechariah 4. Isn't there a reference to the plains and the mountains in Zechariah 4? Is that a reference to the final? Is that a reference to when Yeshua is going to return here? Zechariah 14. So if we go down to Zechariah 4, sometimes it's faster just to zip. Zechariah 3. Zechariah 4. This is the word of the Lord to Zerubbabel, not by power, not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, says the Lord of hosts. Who are you, O great mountain? Before Zerubbabel, you shall become a plain. Is this referring to bowl number 7 when the islands flee away and the mountains become a plain? Who are you, O great mountain? Before Zerubbabel, you shall become a plain. Is this a reference to the earth going back to Pangea? And he shall bring forth the capstone with shouts, grace, grace to it. Moreover, the word of the Lord came to me, saying, the hands of Zerubbabel have laid the foundation of this temple. His hand shall also finish it. Then you will know that the Lord of hosts has sent me to you, for who has despised the day of small things? For these 7 rejoice to see the plumb line in the hand of Zerubbabel. They are the eyes of the Lord, which scan to and fro throughout the whole earth. Then I answered and said to him, what are these 2 olive trees? And there's your 2 witnesses. Or 2 olive trees. Thank you for watching this clip from the 2 Witnesses Live. If you like this content, do me a favor and please hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. Visit us Monday through Friday at 4:30. We look forward to seeing you there.